Hi everyone, how are we all doing? If you're new to my channel, welcome and thanks for tuning in. It would mean a lot if you subscribed as well, to help make it grow a tiny bit. And for those that aren't new, welcome back. In this video, we'll take a look at some daily races I did a couple of weeks ago. As you might have already seen in the background, we're at Spa-Francorchamps. This was daily race B at the time in group 4 cars, and this combo is one of my best ones in this game. It came up a few months ago as well, and I was quite good at it. So when I saw that we're getting this combo again, I was quite happy about it. Now with this track, combined with the rolling start, which I'll talk about a bit later on in the video, the most important thing is the qualifying. As you can see, we started this race in 4th place, just managing to get onto the start-finish straight to not have to worry about the final chicane. Starting any place lower than that can be quite tricky, even though starting in 4th isn't that good either. Although for me, having a bit of space at the start of the race offers me some breathing room, so I can settle into the race a bit easier and get into my rhythm. As we get round Les Sources, we skip ahead to the next lap, since nothing really happened in the first one. We'll look at the gaps at the start later on, but when you start around a second behind the car in front, it's hard to catch up to them right away. Unfortunately, in trying so hard, we got ourselves a half a second penalty for corner cutting, which we're going to serve in a few moments' time. Because of the penalty, we lose one position, but we still have some time to get that back if we manage to stay with the RCZ in front of us. Oh yeah, the car. Even though most of the lap times on the top 10 leaderboard were set in the Jag or the McLaren cars, I decided to use the RCZ as I knew how to get it around the track as fast as possible and set a good lap time with it. I tried the other cars as well, but just couldn't quite match them to my pace in the RCZ. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some drawbacks to using this car, mainly at the start of the races. But if you were able to stay in the toe of the car ahead, it wasn't such a big issue. By what I've seen throughout the week, I was always faster in this twisty middle part of the track, so if I got in front of someone at the end of Camel Straight, I could have built a big enough gap through that second sector to be able to stay ahead. As we're now coming to the end of that sector too, and onto the back straight, even though it's not really a straight, but anyway, we can see the effect that the slipstream has. We keep gaining on the car ahead all the time, but it's better to stay behind at this point, going through the final couple of corners, since we would probably just get overtaken again on the next straight. Approaching the final chicane, still behind the RCZ, there's yellow flags ahead, which usually means something happened. And yeah, we can see a car facing the wrong way, so looks like there might have been some contact. Coming out of the chicane, we can see another Jag going slower on the left side, but are we going to be that much faster to get in front of them before Les Sources? Trying to look for a move down the inside, but it would have been too risky. Better to stay behind, get that toe down to Eau Rouge, and see what we can do on Camel Straight. Going down to Eau Rouge, we're trying to stay close, but not too close to the car ahead. A bit of a lift there before going uphill, also being wary of track limits at the top. Because of the higher entry speed, it's not hard to run wide on the exit and get a penalty. We get through without any issues, so let's see what happens down the straight and into the braking zone. The Jag and us get a really good run on the RCZ because of the slipstream. Going for the inside line, we go side by side, but they manage to squeeze past. Getting a tiny bit of contact with the Jag, but then we get hit from behind, pushing us into the French driver. So I thought it was only fair to let them stay ahead, and I waited for them to get past. We can see the penalty system working well in this case, as the Spaniard that hit us gets a penalty. A lot has been said about the penalty system in the last few weeks, but here, in my opinion, it really worked like it should. I don't believe the Spaniard hit us intentionally. They might have just missed their braking point, tried to stop the car anyway, but were just too late. We will never know that. But they still hit another car, and the game usually punishes you for that. Staying in 5th place at the moment, with about half a lap to go in this race, trying to stay right on the rear bumper of the car in front. Apart from that, we also have to keep an eye out on how far behind the Spaniard we are, so that at the end, we are less than 2 seconds behind to gain that position. The Jag runs over the bollard on the left hand side, and it slows them down ever so slightly, which could be our chance down the back straight if we can get a good exit out of this set of corners. Not the best of exits out of Stavelo. We lose a bit of time, and the exit to the straight wasn't perfect either. Although we are still comfortably in the slipstream, so hopefully it can pull us closer to go for a move into the final chicane. We're not gaining on the Jag as fast as we would like, due to them being in the tow as well. We just have to be careful not to run wide here, which we don't, and it gives us a good run on the French driver. Trying to go down the inside here, braking as late as possible, but they swerve right and take the inside line for this first part. And they get a good run through the chicane, so we're staying behind. But what about the Spaniard? Are we close enough? And yes, we are. With the penalty applied, the Spaniard loses 2 positions, so we finish 4th in this race. Let's now jump right into the next race and see if we can do any better. We're starting 4th again, so just after we get onto the start-finish straight. We've got 3 Jags in front of us, so trying to catch them up at the beginning is going to be a big task. But let's see how it goes. Getting the countdown to start our race with our 3, 2, 1 and away we go. Taking a quick look behind, you can see how the field is spread out with rolling starts here at Spa. We're a second and a half behind the car ahead and almost exactly the same ahead of the Brit behind us. Since I'm always starting towards the front, I really don't mind these rolling starts here, but I'm quite sure I would think differently if I was starting somewhere mid-pack or towards the back. Skipping ahead to the end of lap 1, we can see someone ahead having a penalty, which could come in handy for us to catch up to them later on. We also catch up to the Spaniard ahead here, and get close enough to be in their slipstream through the first sector and get us right back into the race. There are 2 laps left in this race, and we're not that far away potentially even from the lead, but I don't think a win would be in the cards for us in this race, because we would have to fight our way past all 3 cars. Every overtake we would have to do would basically just slow us down, meaning we would lose time to the other cars and having to catch back up would take some time, which we don't have a lot of in this race. We quickly made it to the Camel Straight now, where things are going to start to become more interesting. We're getting closer and closer to the car ahead, pulling alongside them and catching the Jag in front that had to serve the penalty. This time it wasn't our time though, being on the outside, so we back out of it, but it's not over yet. As I've said, I was faster through this second part of the lap in my RCZ than those that use the Jags, so let's see what we can do here. As we head downhill into this tricky braking zone, we drop back slightly, but within a second or 2, get right back on the rear bumper of the Spaniard. Trying to put some pressure on them and maybe force them into a mistake. Going around Rivage corner, the Spaniard actually does make a mistake and runs slightly wide onto the AstroTurf, which means he's going to have some dirt on his tires now. And going through here, we can see the effects of the dirty tires, as the Spaniard runs wide again, handing us the position, and we set our sights on the next Jag ahead. Because of all this, we've lost some more time compared to the leader of this race. They're now over 3.5 seconds ahead, which is probably going to be impossible to gain back. Looks like we're fighting for the 2nd place in this race now. We're going to have... Oh, wait, we have a flying car in this race as well. It's always funny to see cars taking off in this game like that, whenever they hit a cone or a bollard in this case. Now, moving on to the beginning of the final lap, still comfortably in the tow of the car ahead, going downhill towards Eau Rouge. They don't have anyone ahead of them, so we'll be able to gain quite a lot down the Camel Straight. But is it going to be enough to get ahead? We keep gaining constantly and get closer and closer to the back of them, but they can't really decide whether to go defensive or stay on the racing line. Unfortunately, they decide to go to the right in the last second, closing the gap on the inside, so I couldn't decide where to go. So yeah, going into the back of them and losing all the momentum we gained beforehand wasn't really a plan. It looks like we're staying behind at this point, but it's not all over just yet. We're still close enough, and with the slipstream down the back straight, we can go for a move into the final chicane. Now let's fast forward this bit, as we almost go into the back of them again, getting a good exit out of Rivage and knowing that we're much better going into the next corner. The Jag decides to go defensive this time and cover the inside line, but start to slowly drift back onto the racing line, so we have to back out of it because there's no space left, otherwise we could have touched and it would have been game over for both of us probably. Quite a good bit of racing through this part, as we go side by side yet again, just can't get that bit of extra speed we would need to get ahead. We can't afford to make any mistakes here. And just as I say that, the Saudi in front runs wide on the exit, giving us the chance to come even closer. Oh wait, we don't just get closer, we even get ahead, due to the Jag losing the grip because of dirty tires again. Moving on to the end of the race now, finishing 2nd this time, but let's jump right into the next race and see if we can do even better. And here we are again, already underway, going through the final chicane to start the race. We're starting in third, so a tiny bit better than before. We also have another RCZ in front of us, so we might be able to catch up to them in this first lap already. Let's now take a quick look at the difference between starting third or fourth. You can see that the car behind is already over a second behind us, meaning they're not in our slipstream, while we're much closer to the car ahead, getting that toe down the straight now. As I've said before, the Jacks get a much better run straight off the bat, which is why they are able to pull away enough to keep them ahead at the beginning of the race. But this time we're behind another RCZ, and we got a better run through this starting phase of the race. Also, staying in the slipstream of the car ahead gives us higher speed down the straight. With the Brit not taking a defensive line, we move to the right, get past them, and focus our attention to the German in first place. We now have a bit of clear air in front, so we have to nail every single corner in this section, so we can catch up with the car in front and fight for the win later on. Trying to avoid any mistakes again, as I usually end up bottling it one way or another in these kinds of situations, while trying to get closer to the car ahead. Taking a quick look at the radar, the Brit is staying right on our tail, which I wasn't too worried about because we've raced against them a few times before, and I knew they weren't going to go for any crazy moves or dive bombs into any of the corners. But unfortunately, looks like they've made a mistake somewhere as they drop back. We skip ahead to the end of the lap, without any mistakes may I add, and we managed to get closer to the German. Coming out of the final chicane, or even while going through it, you have to really be careful with your throttle inputs in this car. Putting the foot to the floor too soon will cause a lot of wheel spin, as well as understeer, and you won't get a good exit out of the corner. The same goes for the corner coming up, La Source. Very tight hairpin, but you really want to get a good exit out of it, since you could then go flat out for around half a minute until you get to the next braking point. Switching to some insane speeds again, going through Eau Rouge and Radion, we get a good run on the German ahead, and they decide to go defensive this time, unlike the Brit in the previous lap. So we have nowhere else to go apart from moving to the left, which will give us the outside line for the corner coming up. Let's hope we can get the move done before that though. We do get ahead and into the lead for a brief moment, but the German pulls it back, and with some door banging, they do stay ahead at this point. But we're not giving up that easy. We just have to stay right on their rear bumper, put some pressure on them and hope for some kind of a mistake. A small one creeps up on them through this corner, but they keep it together and keep on going. Heading into Rivage, they go all Tokyo drift, but still manage to hold the slide and push on. They do feel some pressure from us, looks like it. Usually I'm not too afraid to go for a move into the next corner here, which I do usually take well, but decided to lift off this time and stay behind. Although there was a small window to go for it, but it would have been very risky. Let's just stay behind for now and see what we can do further on. It is obvious that we could go faster than the German ahead through this part, but we can't get past at the moment. Oh wait, here's a chance now. Is this going to be the same as in the race before when we gained the position? Yeah, we can see the German does go wide. Not as wide as previously though, but we still get in front of them. Now just have to hold this lead, hopefully to the end of the race. We skip to the end of the race now, as nothing exciting happened. The German got a penalty going wide back there, so we managed to pull away and with a comfortable lead get to the end and win this race. Finally got a win. But I felt like I could still get a better time in qualifying, so I jumped in, did a few laps, and now take a look at my fastest one of that week here. As you can see, our fastest lap was 2 minutes 25.8, but it still wasn't enough to get us on pole in this lobby. There were a few things different with this race, already getting the A+ driver rating, which is the highest driver rating rank apart from an S, but that's a different story. Also, there's a new livery on the car as well, which I think it looks much better than the one that was on before. This is going to be the last race of this video, so let's crack on with it. At the end of this first sector of lap 1, we haven't really lost as much time. We're much closer to the German in front than we usually are. That gives us a great opportunity to get right on their tail through this section and possibly get ahead by the end of the lap, but that's still a long way to go. With the German going wide there, we all know it's probably going to happen with having dirt on their tires. Not just that, they also get a penalty. And to me, it looked like they left the door open here on the inside, so I went for the move. Now, I will admit that it might not have been the cleanest of overtakes, but they slowed down quite a lot, so I went for it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Moving on to the last sector of the lap, we haven't been able to shake the German off, so they will get the tow from us heading into the final chicane. A lot was going through my mind at this point. Should I defend like crazy, possibly risk an incident, or should I just let them pass since they're going to serve their penalty in about a minute and make use of the slipstream down the straight? Unfortunately, I didn't get the best of runs through Blanchimont, so I went somewhat defensive, but they got past around the outside, which was a great move to be honest. So now, let's stay with them and get back ahead when we come to the penalty line. Looking at the left side of the screen, we can see that the cars behind also aren't that far away. So if we fight the German too much, slowing us both down, it would give those behind a chance to get on top of us and get into the mix as well. So we have to race hard and smart here, because there's still a lot of time in this race for things to go wrong. Trying to stay just far enough behind the German so we could get right on their tail just as they will serve their penalty to maximize the slipstream effect for us. But also trying to not cut any corners ourselves, as we were already starting to drift to the left, and it's not that hard to get a corner cutting penalty here at the top of the hill. Unfortunately, we didn't judge the distance that good, so we touched the German in front, which leads to losing a bit of speed. As we skip ahead to the end of lap 2, we also get the fastest lap of the race. The German's still behind us, but close enough to get pulled along in our slipstream. And since it's the last lap of the race, this is now time to start defending a bit more. Getting a good exit out of La Source gives us a bit of a better chance of staying ahead at the end of Kemmel Straight, and we know we can then pull away slightly through that second sector. Going uphill through Radion at the top, the German keeps gaining on us, but is still around half a second behind. The speed difference is quite obvious, as you can see, as we take a look back to see what the German behind us is doing. So we stay to the right to defend the inside line into the first part of Lecombe. The German gets very close to the back of us, and we go side by side through this first part. Great bit of racing from both of us, I'd say, both giving each other just enough space, and with the inside line for this last part, we stay ahead. Maybe there was a bit of contact at the end, but we both survive, fortunately, and keep on going at it. We pull away ever so slightly here. They might have missed their ideal line through the previous corner a tiny bit, but that's maybe like a tenth or two. And there's still not much between the two of us, despite that tiny mistake. Fast forward a little bit here, getting towards the final half of the lap here. Let's hope to keep this lead all the way to the end. We have a couple of corners left now till we get to the last sector, where we're really going to have to defend like hell if we want to win this race. Because the slipstream plays such an important part in this game, the German behind is going to have a good run on us for sure. So here we go. The gap between us and the car behind keeps going down all the time, and we can see the German on our radar now. Both of the corners here are left-handers, so we're staying to the left to get the inside line and try to stay ahead that way. Going too wide into Blanchimont is never a good idea, especially for the car on the outside, as we demonstrate here. The German runs wide on the exit and getting dirt on their tires again, but the race isn't over yet. Trying to go around the outside, they get ahead just enough so we can see they have a penalty, which means it will be added to their race time at the end. They ran us wide on the exit, and now we're in danger from the cars behind to get overtaken at the line. But we hold on to the position, and after the German got their penalty added, we take the win. That was a great week of racing for me, and as I've said, it is my best combo in the game, so I've enjoyed it quite a lot. But that will be all for this video. Thank you very much for watching.
Feel free to drop a like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.